Bolivar Peninsula. Known as the breadbasket of Galveston, and for lifelong Texan Karen Monk.
It's just real relaxing down here.
Her place of peace. This has been Monk's home away from home since she was a little girl. She feels safe here, but that would all change one September afternoon.
It was beautiful weather, blue skies, white clouds, sunshine.
Like she does every month, Monk drove the 50 miles onto this beach to take this all in.
Sitting looking out at the water, me and my dog, just eyes closed, listening to music.
When she noticed she had company.
His tent was about right here, close to the grass, and his car was parked on the other side.
And that car was headed her way.
This car came in front of me and stopped abruptly, slammed on his brakes. He looked at me like, I don't know, maybe he knew me. When I looked up and I saw him, I mean, his facial features are unmistakable. He was probably 10 feet from me, and he sat there for what felt like minutes, looking right in my eyes. So I wasn't going to give up.
The man staring at her, Jesse Leroy Matthew Jr., wanted more than 1,000 miles away for the abduction of University of Virginia student Hannah Graham. Karen recognized him from the news.
My heart literally probably stopped beating. I just held my breath, and then luckily he drove off.
Karen bravely waited here patiently for Jesse to return to the beach so she could give authorities his exact location. It would be 15 long minutes before he did, and she would see to it that his 1,300-mile, 4-day run from police would come to an end. After repeated calls to authorities, Karen got the attention of the Galveston County Sheriff's Office. She packed up her car, set her odometer, and drove exactly 4.2 miles to this fruit stand where she told a deputy where to find Matthew.
The deputy went by to check things out, and it seems that we got a person off the street that needed to be taken up.
By the time Karen got home, Matthew was in custody and being questioned by investigators.
Actually, he was very quiet. Several individuals came down and tried to talk to him, and he didn't want to discuss anything with anybody.
Jesse spent 41 hours inside cell block M148A before this door ever opened, and he was transferred back to Virginia.
She said, "You're right."
How rewarding was that?
I think my jaw dropped. I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding?
Did you think, I did it?
Yeah. I was like, wow, I wasn't wrong.
And Galveston Sheriff Henry Trossasset and Perfect Strangers are doing more than just saying thank you.
We were the ones pushing, we were the ones contacting Virginia, the Crime Stoppers in that area, seeing if we could get her assistance. We would like to see her being honored and rewarded for what she's done.
It's peaceful, and
Until then, Cheryl Bean was compelled to find Karen and let her know that the Longhorn State was proud of one of its own.
we have somebody who is a hero, and we let them go underneath the radar, and I think that's wrong.
So she called on Texas legislators to honor Karen with this proclamation and started a GoFundMe account for the single mother of 3 and student.
Believe me, because Karen did that, others will live. Others will not face a heartache, a lifetime of questions, and endless tears at every anniversary and every birthday and every missed opportunity.
And despite fear, self-doubt, and reservations, on September 24th, Karen Monk was determined not to miss this opportunity.
I don't feel like a hero, really. I really don't know how I feel, just right place at the right time.
The place where Karen once again feels safe and at peace.
What happens after we die? Is there a resting place for our souls somewhere beyond this earth?
I saw and experienced things beyond anything that I could ever have imagined.
Wayne Hart says there is. In fact, he says he's been there. In August of 1996, Hart was on death's door after being struck by a car while moving his disabled vehicle off a busy Spotsylvania County road. As doctors worked to save Hart's life,
I felt myself falling backwards into death. But then I felt myself turn, and it was like a cooling breeze on my face, and I saw that pinpoint of light. I was up in the corner of the emergency room, looking down at a very broken, bloody body laying on the gurney.
Yet Hart says there was no fear.
And then the most extraordinary thing happened. Behind that gurney, the wall of the emergency room dissolved away.
Beyond that wall, Hart says, was another realm.
There was a perfect sense of peace, of belonging, of being home. I sensed a presence around me, thought it was a presence that said, you are going to go back.
On that day, Hart says he experienced something that thousands of others claim they have too, a near-death experience. Psychiatrist Dr. Bruce Grayson has been studying this phenomena for 30 years.
How many files would you say you have?
A little over 1,000.
Behind closed doors, Grayson and a small team of researchers at the University of Virginia are seeking the answer to a question that's baffled scientists and philosophers for thousands of years. Are the physical brain and conscious mind connected, or are they entirely separate, as near-death experiences might indicate?
These are not a sign of hallucination. They're not a sign that you're crazy. They happen to all sorts of people.
But not everyone is a believer.
What the skeptics fail to realize is that that realm is absolutely real.
Dr. Eben Alexander should know. He was one of them.
You were a man of science.
Very much so. I mean, for me, science was a pathway to truth.
Alexander, a renowned neurosurgeon, was living in Lynchburg with his family in 2006 when a rare and deadly form of meningitis infected his brain, sending him deep into a coma for 7 days.
Severe bacterial meningitis is the most perfect model of human death.
But even with no recognizable signs of brain activity, Alexander says he still experienced something profound.
But it was a very beautiful realm filled with flowers blossoming, these lovely colors and textures beyond description. Waterfalls, perfect little pools, where I was moving up through it as a speck of awareness on a butterfly wing with millions of other butterflies.
And by his side, Alexander says, a guardian angel.
She never spoke a word, but her message to me, very clear, thoughts coming straight into my mind. You are deeply loved and cherished forever. You have nothing to fear. There's nothing you can do wrong in this realm. This greatly strengthened my faith in God.
But it was a revelation made 4 months after Alexander emerged from that coma that convinced him his experience was real.
I remember her face so perfectly.
For years, Alexander, who was adopted as a baby, had been trying to find his birth parents. When he finally met his biological family, they sent him a photo of his birth sister, a beautiful young woman who had died at the age of 37, just a few years prior. Alexander had never seen or met her, but when he looked at the picture, he instantly knew her. It was the guardian angel he had seen while in the coma.
There's no way my mind could have ever made that up. And that part was a tremendous revelation.
Hello, how are you?
The book he has written, Proof of Heaven, has been at the top of the New York Times bestsellers list for almost a year.
That severe meningitis that by all rights should have killed me.
Everywhere he speaks, hundreds show up to listen,
That has, I think, grabbed people's attention.
including those in the medical community,
Apparent contact with deceased loved ones.
like Grayson and his team in the Division of Perceptual Studies, who now have the grant money to attempt something never done before, to study near-death experiences as they occur in the hospital. They'll use computers to project random objects in the ER, OR, and other parts of the hospital, images that would be tough to see unless one was looking down from above.
We know that about 10% of people who have cardiac arrests will say that during the arrest they left their bodies, and many of them say that they were hovering above their bodies looking down on it.
What is happening in a person's body and brain at that exact moment?
It's called a flying dragon.
And how does the experience change them?
Everything changed. I was a completely different person.
Wayne Hart says he has a new outlook on life, a life with much simpler pleasures.
My personal definition of the word God is everything. That spirit is there. It's always there.
While science may never have all the answers, Hart says there's faith. Faith that beyond this world, something extraordinary awaits.
And that makes us very powerful and important beings.
But I think about him.
For Mary Easterly,
He was good looking, had pretty eyes.
a first impression is a lasting one, especially when the stranger walking into your life is a dashing Virginia gentleman.
Little did I know I was dancing with such a star.
Richard Fuller Patterson introduced himself to the 17-year-old at the Country Club of Virginia 75 years ago.
I remember what I was wearing.
It would be the start of a blossoming relationship.
He was tall and handsome, trim. He was a good dancer.
But Fuller's time in Richmond and with Mary would be fleeting.
I saw him the last night that he was in Richmond. I had a date with him.
His whole life is a history lesson.
Fuller was born into a life of privilege. His family, the founders of Lucky Strike Tobacco.
I guess I first became aware of him when I was a little girl.
Latney Crittenden Miller says her great uncle excelled in all facets of life, whether in the classroom or track and field.
Everything he did, he fully committed.
Fuller would enter Harvard Law, but soon grows restless, especially with the winds of World War II blowing across the Atlantic.
He just was so disgusted by the whole Nazi movement that he felt like it was something he had to do.
Fuller does not wait to get into the fight. He makes a bold, life-altering decision.
Left his full scholarship at Harvard. He gave up his American citizenship.
Fuller joins the Royal Canadian Air Force and puts his piloting skills to the test.
Camp Borden, Friday, July 26, 1940.
In letters home to his mother, the 26-year-old defends his decision to join.
You must not for one moment worry about us. We will come through.
An ace, Fuller would shoot down 18 enemy planes. He was seemingly unstoppable in the cockpit.
Our fighter pilots take off to destroy the enemy.
In late 1941, Fuller's dominance of the sky would abruptly end.
I think he knew that it was a cause that he felt was worth dying for.
During a raid over a small seaside town in Belgium, blazing German guns would bring down the decorated pilot 4,000 miles from home. Ironically, Fuller would crash on one of the most infamous days in U.S. history.
December 7th, 1941.
When he crashed, people didn't know he was an American.
In Richmond, news of Fuller's demise generates bold headlines.
Patterson missing, shot down, feared missing, feared dead.
Days stretch into weeks, weeks melt into months, months give way to years. Fuller's remains never recovered.
It is emotional. I know it was so painful for all of them.
But in 1946, the deep sorrow softens with the arrival of a letter. The author, a stranger in Belgium.
To the mother and the family of Patterson, R.F.
Henri Verhulst would answer the frustrating question the Pattersons grieved over. What became of Fuller? Henri witnessed Fuller's Spitfire crash that fateful day. The middle-aged man risked his life, retrieving Fuller's body and burying it in a churchyard. 5 years after the crash, Henri felt it was his duty to locate Fuller's family in America to shed light on their son's bravery.
Madame, in your affliction, please be proud of your son. He fell as a hero.
He's the hero in this story to me. Always has been.
Fuller's mother, Mattie, chose to leave her son's remains in Belgium under the care of Henri.
And these are roses from Fuller's grave, and they are still red, all the way from 1949.
The flowers, lovingly preserved by Fuller's mom, along with each and every letter and photo received from overseas.
Now I know that he sleeps peacefully in a friendly country, and tender care is given to his grave by kind friends.
Henri Verhulst's actions 70-plus years ago answered so many agonizing questions and still fills Fuller's relatives with appreciation.
We know everything about what happened because of this man.
When he was overseas, he wrote me and asked me if I'd send him a picture and put it in the plane. So when they found the plane and found his body, I often wondered whether the picture was still in there.
For Mary Easterly, the young woman Fuller would court in the months before flying off to war, Patterson's death still leaves her pondering.
Very much a part of my life.
At what might have been if the man who made that lasting impression on the dance floor so long ago survived.
I've often wondered if he'd come back, whether I would have married him or not. He was very nice to me.